Oh, thank you. Oh, Changmalia, not to delays.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Tadinikasinga, Colosungi Korshe Yara. Katambuti Shichongos, Sanje Chumden de Varanasilia, Korangade Sambuteli Chusora. Oh, because you call not the Korshe.
This is matter.
Ah, don't do that. Oh, the new Korangade de Sanje Chumden de Ludukawache de Duza. Shepjide Tadoche, some salami, touch, enriching the red one. Oh, there's a sarna to live then. Sarna de la Sanje Chumden de Chesontoa. Oh, the indeed, you are an assessora. Transformer Redana Society. The transformed in the combre kept the Usardo. Redama Buyo Institute. That things are the Mimambo has to Reda changes. Such a catching shot is Ritatos to Shire, Nematindiris Smado. Tanda ne embo tende Kayomare. O Delia Chusonde Tembashi Colia. Tunge Tembas, Tangazu Shenja said to Sheda Shenji Chana, and Tunge Mayungara. Shenja said to Shenja Shuksoritana, and Tita Tendrona Tunge the Noriungara. O Tende. Those Ganga Shenja Mare, Tunga Varidas, and Sotera. And Mida Varidas and Jurishan, two Tato, Tenditanga, some Tangi Maritana, and a chick Mab said to hope to call all Tata, Missing Revishon Samje, Tunga Mayungura, Tambuna Samatan, or Diesel Day and with a Diesel Day and with Samsa, Medavada, Tunga, and Shinti Samlakona, Shenja de Shukso, Shenja Shukso Chena, and a Chagwa Chisak Utila, never done Digman Dichonsona. Tunga Yona de Shukso to Gara, Negab. Don't dumber Becasore. Sawane Paya Tondalia, Tamebal so Comgora. It's a Meda Dunge, Tikasisha Sarche. Tatine Tunge Shebar Chachera, Kunjum Pang Barchas. Kunjum Pang Barchas, do the carres, though the Sosoge, Ledan Yamuni Teres ora. Shen Kansachi Chebabuchi, want me to. Kashe Miliki, Kashe Hala, Kashe Tendo, and the Kashe Neyaga, Kashe Neto, attend the Chuet, Shendaji Senge Omarese. Then they can get concert to the Soso Kidigil Alatene, and Drevusang Gores at Tondal. And then Kunjum Pabet boss. Nga Samsung Argentice. And then I some not the one to Tungem some of this you want get any Kanga Chiora. Jiden Kamlanga to the Chaya de Tambo, Nekeda, Yigidan, Sayatoya Kangata, Trandabuke Yomara. Oh, Nga, some Nachagdo, Nabe, Togam, Chichemas, Sheche, Tendechene, Nalia Kangesena, Devatu, Chagan to the Besusene, Echo, Zimbeko, Yajendro, Yungura. O Te Duko Nanzidi, Nga, some Satan, Nga, Samsa, not the one dollar to him and do by some lote. And then Nizu Gitan Jung Cute Ese. Kitigile, South Ten and the Jungle Sungura. So Juse Kunjung Rabi Kensura. Nanzinte da Chagdan or Tendre Lote, Chagdan Wangela Society, Tunga Cute Sungura. Tunga Kunjung Cute Jukunju, Rabi, Tunga Sutabu Cuteres. Tunga Kensing get the Sebateres. You say to a coinel sobalco, Lutoya on the cord, the Shuk Sembo Sebasiora, Petba, Kagachena, Madura, Shuchi Samlo, or the Seba de Tungamang became Sigores, Sebachun and Tungachun to Gara, Kunju Dembase Sora, the Tunga Kunjun Secretary, Nanzi Shuk Sembuchena, Nai said the Shuk Sembuchena, Nanzo, the Conchakta, Noble Shuk Sembuchena. Tungekanga the Tig on Kitigilesa, Tungekang Gores, the Sota, the Kunjum Pabet and Boss. Didn't go Pabet and Boss, and
comes to Shana.
What did I Hakonda, Mount Yeah. Lots of shadowed.
So we're going to continue with our topic on the three turnings of the wheel of Dharma. We were in the process of discussing the first turning, the turning of the wheel of Dharma on the Four Noble Truths. The first turning, the subject matter was about the Four Noble Truths. And the teaching was given at what we now call as Varanasi in modern India, referred to as Deer Park at the time. And that's where the Buddha gave the first turning. On the Four Noble Truths, the Noble Truth of suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path that leads to the cessation of suffering. So, the Buddha gave the Four Noble Truths in four circles. First introducing the Four Noble Truths. This is a Noble Truth of suffering and so forth. Then in the second turning, in the second circle, he said, the suffering has to be understood. And the reason why suffering has to be understood is if we understand the nature of samsaric experiences as fundamentally suffering in nature, fundamentally impermanent in nature, these teachings are given so that we will be able to reduce our unrealistic expectation and therefore reduce our attachment. Because if we are able to reduce our attachment and unrealistic expectations, then introducing to the nature of suffering actually helps us to elevate suffering, helps us to reduce suffering, and eventually gives us the idea to get rid of suffering because we actually experience it. And so with the ultimately with the view of selflessness or emptiness, we are able to eliminate suffering altogether. But in the beginning, the reason for giving teachings on suffering and impermanence is not to actually make us suffer more, but really to eliminate or reduce our attachment, reduce our unrealistic expectations. Because if we have unrealistic expectations and attachments, and if something happens to objects of attachment, whatever it may be, it brings tremendous mental suffering, not just the physical suffering. So because of that, then in the second, with respect to the second truth, he said the noble truth of the cause of suffering has to be abandoned or eliminated. So the cause of suffering is two defilements or negative emotions or afflictive emotions, as we call it, such as desire and so forth, anger and so forth, and the karmic actions that are propelled by anger, desire and so forth. So therefore, the noble truth of the cause of suffering is to basically induce us the understanding that our suffering, whatever kind of experiences that we may be undergoing through, suffering or happiness, it is fundamentally because of our own actions. Initially in the form of defilements, it could be desire, anger, whatsoever, and then the actions that are propelled by that, which conditions our mind to think in a particular way, to experience the world in a particular way. That is basically what is responsible. And eventually, even the cause of defilement is what we call as the root ignorance of grasping to a notion of a false self, or what we call as self-grasping. The idea that there is an inherent intrinsic self that is distinct from the mind and distinct from the body, which is an illusion, which when we have strong clinging or attachment to it is the fundamental cause of suffering. So therefore, fundamentally, self-grasping is which induces the defilements such as hatred. If you have self-grasping, then whatever happens, if something good happens to us, we have like desire or attachment. Something negative happens to us, we have aversion and anger. So therefore, fundamentally, clinging to a false notion of an intrinsic, independent, existing self is basically the root cause of suffering. Because whatever kind of actions we do, we think that we are doing it to serve the self, that serve the self grasping, so that's why we engage in all kind of activities, even particularly the negative actions, and that's why, because of those actions, it conditions our mind in a particular way, and it conditions the mind to experience the world in a particular way. So that's why it is fundamentally responsible for our experience, not some other agent, external agent, that is responsible for our suffering, for our existence.
Oh yeah. Oh, in the Kunjung Sheba, Tungi Sheba, Tungi Sheba Chas Dosara. Kunju Pangbar Chas, or the Disa, Nanjinda, Shenjagi, Chagnagi, Samuti, Kaze Shukchuma in a Tesamjiko, Sembleva, Tungi, Chendele, Tungi Yundro, and it's our name, so Yosungara, Kunju Pangbar Chas. Gopang want to chas, and it Tungi Judy, never swear your vesna. This some Yara, Tungi do, Q and do, that Judy never so took Ayusana, or the never swear your race. Didn't go up about tempos. Nanzinda Chagdani Bude. Nanzinda Chagdani Bude, Semjerang Shimare, Semjerang Shimare, Nazu Combewangia, Suchimbu Yunguramado, Tiba Kagasuki or race. Or Tene, Time Ebata. Oh, Tende Combalatene, and a Narjim, but a Shuksun, Chagdan Shuksun Dona, and a Chagdan Seba, Sem Chagdan Dagbetawa, Tarbas Lutter and Gogwet Ambassador, Semlia, Chagdan Sobe, Kentipa, Tasuna, and Gopasigora. What didn't go up our temple, Semlia, Tongegi, you, Chagdan Yomola Sok, but the Segu, yes, Seba, the Toya Yores, Sem Gerangshima, the Kagan, but your race on Gora.
So therefore, the second noble truth, the noble truth of cause of suffering, that is defilements and negative actions, should be abandoned. So if we generate less attachment and anger and so forth, if we are able to see the world realistically, not like having a lot of unrealistic expectations, then it minimizes suffering initially and in the interim, and then eventually there is the possibility for uprooting suffering altogether, which basically brings us to the third noble truth, the noble truth of the cessation of suffering, or what we call as liberation. Is cessation possible? Is liberation possible? Is liberation from samsara or samsaric suffering possible? And the answer to that is kind of indicated earlier during the second noble truth, because if the root of samsara can be eliminated, root of suffering and defilements can be eliminated, then we can actually achieve a state free from suffering. But the root is, as we mentioned earlier, self-grasping and other defilements induced by self-grasping, such as anger, jealousy, aversion, and so forth. But all these defilements, including self-grasping, including desire, anger, and so forth, does not fundamentally taint the pure, luminous nature of the mind. They are temporary influences brought about by own conceptual, confused thinking, but the fundamental nature of the mind is pure and lucid. And so therefore, because defilements do not taint the fundamental nature of the mind, they are temporary associations. They do not fundamentally taint the nature of the mind, so they can be purified. So liberation is nothing but a state of mind where negative emotions have ceased to be. So therefore, such a state of cessation, such a state of liberation is possible.
Oh yeah, Gobangundu Chase, Danzi de Chagdala Sogba, Semlea, Tagbam, Sebam, Semlea, Goban Gopade, and Janipa, Gundu Cheku Res, Tobacheku Res, Gobangundu Chas. A condition Gobangundu Chetu, Semlea, Yomo Chagdala Sogba, Danzi de Pa, Sene, Dagbachi soya Kandi Soto Gresena, Lam Gombarcha Ase. King as Chinchilogi, Chagdan, Tangzinda, Te Lodi Nam Tomano Comde Ora, Depa Mab Soya to the Chinchilogi Shebare. Move Nezu than Tumba Sheba Marang, around to Gombe one day, ya get out. Sako Nezu Chimachi the Tom, Netan on it, Tendemare, Te in the deed and the Chagdan, the Dangzito to Kangolo Chinchilore. Drawdown is some the order. Chinchimalo when Nezu the Hako Ache. Da said the Tangziting Nase, not round the Shibuchi Yovan Zingiora. Or the not round Yomare. Nade Pumbungala Tension Jelne, then a tag was some ready. Now some Rangi Combe on the Tomamone, round the Shibuchi Yovachi, Zingiora, esse. The Lobades, Tendeju Yomar is more Nezulia. Or the Indian Nai Singage, but Shenja Cheko Sangada 2000 Yamton brought together Ngai Lu Ngai Chik Kangbas Ngai Saja Sarab Chimanguyora. But there's another Tenton brought in Yamton dress Kayoma. So Shenja wanted to charge the Yamdore Tigiora Matuchi. O Tinduko Nada Ngai said, shook him with the manner, and it is all never of that did a Metumba Johnson no trot in Gumarwa. O Tindu Dame Bada. Medabada, or Tendre Champagny Soba, Tendre Combalatene, any the Carcel Lam de Comgo Esgora, Lam Combarchase. The Sosu Namjune, Dame Bada, Medabada, or Tendre Lam Combalatene, Tangzi di Chinjulago Sonza Conyoru Yodore, Chagdang is Samlo to Yoru Yordura, or Tijane, and it want to Chetu Grace. Lam Yores a dame of Tombani Tobe said, and so Dame said Tobe Lamde or the Tarba Tobala Kugiora. Tarba Tobalea Dame was a Tangziti Chagdan Yumuki Chuchigora, or Tisha Nakago Resungora. And I'm young around the Chita Melia Tatin or Tibetation.
So, the third noble truth is that the state of cessation or the state of liberation must be actualized, and I explained how that is possible, because fundamentally negative emotions do not taint the fundamental lucid nature of the mind. So in order to do so, or in order to lead to a state where defilements are eliminated, the fourth noble truth is that the noble truth of the path that leads to the state of cessation must be cultivated in meditation. So, generally speaking, we have kind of innate self-grasping, we have desire, we have defilements, but these are, as kind of indicated earlier, what we call as wrong, confused states of mind, because they are fabricated by the concept, by conceptual mind. They do not actually inhere in the nature of the mind. For example, the idea that there is a intrinsically existent self, a self that is independent of the body and the mind. And we have an inherent clinging to such a notion of self. But when we really analyze, we realize that this notion of a self is actually mistaken or confused. Because the idea that there is a self distinct from the psychophysical aggregates, distinct from the mind-body complex, distinct from the mind and distinct from the body, is through kind of analysis, analysis of the wisdom realizing emptiness of selflessness, realize that such a perception is wrong and mistaken. And in that case, other defilements that are induced by this self-grasping are also mistaken, because the root which gives rise to these defilements are mistaken. And so therefore, when you have the reason why this mistaken notion of a self induces so much suffering is, for example, if we have a strong inherent grasping to a self, we also have strong inherent grasping to a notion of mine. So my property, my this, my that. with the inherent kind of thinking that these two are inseparable, I and mine. But that is not the case. Anything happen, and the two can separate. But if we are right from the beginning realistic, then it kind of minimizes the mental suffering. And eventually, if you really realize the selflessness, then it is able to eliminate suffering altogether. So therefore, the teachings on selflessness are given in order to actually give rise to liberation. Liberation is liberation fundamentally from grasping to a false notion of a self.
Yeah. Oh, that's similar. Chagdan seba den gogba de sigora. Oh, this is until gogbas. Dungen gogbe chane gogba sigora. Shiva nyamu shive chane. Dungen ju nyamu shive chane shiva de esa. Janombas, gogba shiva janombas. Pemba dan deyong ojuba. Negab dewa pulia pemba. Oh, tende pending ojube. Jawa de esora. Gogba shiva janom. Gogba shiva janom ninjuse. O tende ta mebala gom ni tangsin di kiki mebaji chagdan nenji sesona ane de gombe wangi ko tu tagdo kiki mara yang ki tende yung marwa goba shewa kyano minjung namba indi shera dunga lar minjung we chawa dokba meba lar dunga yongya meba tangsin yongya meba sigwara lar men dokba chik tar sune tendo tarwa de mado yang nyamu ki chagdan ki kwa ko tende yung mara sungwara o tiche 가서 고바샤자 다 람셰두자 람셰두 동에 덴발 넘버 시와라 메다 동에 스티커스 셰사라 메다 동에 똥 당면이데 콤고라 똥하다 다음에 봐세데 람kum주사 셰쿠요라 똥하시데 풍부되네 다 메마 릭토메 마부도가 자가 데데 롱보 자가도 릭토메 카셰베 상마에 다 상마레 류 상마레 카셰 계samñene misanware ser lakbacha chogmare timna pho chogmare ser ti timna di phona yakbuyumare ser kangsale 계samñene thomenda da gason do yani da chije do sebuta kabuta takabuta nabuta sebuta chije se do o di yakshe ti do gare se le chora o tende de yo mare songyora 상회다 류기 찬내잖아 시단 류디코 미상회 정신신 나의 요바 차의 요바 집에 이교와 집에 시시를 섬로 땅에 지나서 거라 그 미상화 정신신들이 텔레아드네 딘데 강가 집버래 상회 다 생겨지 텔레아 장마지 가시 다 장마 장자지 자신부 가시 두자시 당분이 이렇게 되어 말해서 상회 다 대생기 동바시라 뭐 다대 라오에 다 풍불에 류다 소화다 semle 베타데베 다제요 말해서 근데 다음에 근데 라오다 풍부가보데 레레레네 다 말해서 풍불에 빼들로서 오타데베 다요 말했다 랑자투베 다데 풍부가 파샤나 코란코나 찌부추 대통게 다지요 말은 아주 미네 미소볼 뛰그래 미셈나 미소화단 렐고라 랑자웨 다디요 말했대 랑자웨 다디요는 풍부다야나 찍도요 그래 야는 미상에 풍부다베 돈 셴베 수지요 그래 대요 말에서 당메디 꼭도와 람셰도자 메다동에 똥 당메세 되는 거라 어디 찍럽잖아
So each of the Four Noble Truths are usually described as having four aspects. With regard to the noble truth of the path of cessation, the noble truth of the state of cessation, the four aspects are cessation, peace or pacification, perfect benefit, and definite emergence. So just to briefly explain these four aspects, cessation is the state where defilements or negative emotions have ceased. Pacification means suffering has been pacified. Perfect benefit means such a state of cessation gives rise to temporary benefit and ultimate well-being. And then the fourth aspect of the state of cessation or liberation is termed as definite emergence. Definite emergence means definite emergence from suffering, so that the state of definite emergence or freedom from suffering is irreversible. So that's why it's called definite. And once you actually achieve the state of liberation, you can never fall back into suffering or conditioned existence. And likewise, during the discussion on the noble truth of suffering, we said that suffering has four aspects. Last weekend, that is that the four aspects of suffering are impermanence, suffering, emptiness, and selflessness. So here we really have to understand that this is the first turning, and therefore when the Buddha gave the teachings on emptiness or selflessness, this is not as subtle as the second turning. We're still referring to emptiness and selflessness, but not as subtle as the second turning understanding of selflessness. So, but of the four aspects, impermanence, suffering, emptiness, and selflessness of the noble truth of suffering, the last two, emptiness and selflessness, are also related to the noble truth of the path. That leads to the state of cessation. Path here is path understanding emptiness, path understanding selflessness. But during the first noble truth of suffering, emptiness here refers to a gross understanding of emptiness, and this is giving to an audience that fundamentally was brought in the overall Hindu culture, or like pre-Buddhist culture, if you like, where there is the notion of purity and based on caste system. So some people are said to be born from the creators, from the Brahma's mouth, and some from the shoulders, some from the soles of the feet, and depending on that, you have like corresponding caste system, Brahmins and the untouchables and so forth. So therefore, there's a notion of a pure self for those belonging to the higher caste, a pure self that is distinct from the body and the mind. So here the Buddha is basically saying that there is no self, pure self that is distinct from the body and mind, and the body is not pure. The body is, can give rise to a lot of suffering. It is susceptible to different kind of diseases, and so therefore, there is no one that is kind of immune from the realities of the body, and therefore, because the self is actually designated on the body, there is no pure self. So therefore, he was basically here dismantling attachment to a notion of a pure self in the beginning.
Yes, oh yeah. No, that did it to us. This one. That on that one, there is some good. Carcer. Nene says a negi cune pansalas. Then it was a man in temperature. To make you that can go about the Tishin Lamsera. She's a panzer ribas temperatures. Remember, Mitchell Nasan Naguna, oh, Tanga Nagado, she in Yanga Yore, some consequences. Don't ever run sheets so the Yona. And a co did Judy Carina, some Amjitan, some Locora. Niane Shisha, Tabu Nail and Nayan by Yanga Yoba, to me she by the Hakwa, she said. At the Chelia, Negi Junipancha last, did you? Negi Judy, Karim by the Sejutan, Amjisal Dora, Gardes, Amjo, Nasa Diredoase, Labira. Nanny says, and the egg you the member so at Andalia, and a member courage, or that can a man this out with us. Man did this sana, and can a net to this man tegra. Nanny says, and egg you the punches. Nanny says, the net of us, the net the trial yavate, net the trial yavate, Gopa Sodera, net the treve, Gopa Toya yavate, Hako, not a trial or some to the member. Any desire to a man's sagrabashera, Amjig Mantegra Tisabura. Oh, Tinashi, Sanjay from the Casore, Narazu Tungel Tungeshe Bashe, 아니 대교 강에 마셔 봐체 교된 거에 세 요바 자야 요바도 하고 와체 자야 매데 가래 탑드 가래 때 하고 람데로 다 람당 거 보니디 맹게 쳐더래도 람데 소소 매스나시 사고 해래도 검고 해래도 디디고 디나시다 네바다 맨다 전달 차는 송고도 하대 마시데 디도 가르쳐오래 디도 멤버들 캡톤 바보들이더라 나제 집에 시에들 캡겐 캡톤 바보들아 아니 캡모데 가래 매데라고 매데 캡모네데 셰티세는 타나 타그라 산제 좀 된데 캡톤 바보들체 너 동엘에 캡톤 바보체 근데 캡모데 매데 최지해야 되로 랑 공부해야 랑 삼다체 맹원에티라 아니 다 내요 저들이야 긴티스 로바도 줄이야 카미야다 치세요. 어쩐지 제제 송고도 야 되게 좀 망다서.
So this fundamental structure of Buddhist philosophy and meditation practice, the Four Noble Truths, is generally explained by the Buddha through the metaphor of a sick person. A sick person, first of all, in order for a sick person to cure himself or herself of the disease, has to first of all understand or diagnose the sickness, and then first of all I have to understand that they are sick, and then has to understand the cause of that sickness, and then has to actually infer that sickness can be eliminated by actually understanding and identifying the cause of that sickness, by realizing that the cause can be eliminated, and then in order to actually gain freedom from the sickness has to take the medication as prescribed by the doctor. So similar to that, the Buddha said that first of all, for those who wanted to actually gain the freedom, sickness like freedom from samsara, from the sufferings of samsara, first of all understand that one is suffering. So that's why realizing that one is suffering is very important, because if once we don't realize that, then the very intention to gain freedom from that is not going to come. And so then once one understands that there is suffering, one has to understand what is the cause of that suffering, which is the second noble truth, the noble truth, the cause of suffering. And then one has to understand that just as like freedom from sickness is something that can be achieved, freedom from defilements can also be achieved, which is basically the state of cessation. And just as like one has to take medication prescribed by the doctor, as prescribed by the doctor, one also has to put into practice the teachings, prescription-like teachings given by the teacher, in this case the Buddha. So that's how we should approach the Four Noble Truths. And therefore, in that sense, we also talk about a fundamental Buddhist practice of what we call as the three objects of refuge practice. So therefore, refuge is basically something that gives you protection. So the actual protection is the actual thing that gives you the protection, the real protection, that is, the real refuge, that is the medicine. So in this case, the teachings, the Dharma, when you actually apply the teachings, the Dharma into your practice, you experience freedom from suffering. So therefore, the actual refuge or actual protection, the actual protector is the Dharma. And then the Buddha is considered a protector or refuge in the sense of like the doctor is a protector in giving the teachings, in giving the prescription. And then finally, just as the nurses are also a sort of protector or object of refuge, similarly the Sangha, in the sense that they play a role model, they are also the third objects of refuge.
Oh yeah, that on the Kolo Tambudege, Sanje Karisungudo Sena, Chidan de Karsura, Neda Luda Lonzola Sobatezo Kanga de Rangachani Jituba Serangazo, Yugin Yobachingazo Tonde or Tabar Slow Hangi Samlinal, Rangone Yovarispa. 对现真的律法大呢，下个月上在这个没多少就， Karina, Idoina, China, Karina, Sosinada, Yukuran Wenetu, Nangarang Yedo said Surich, Tonde Yora, Rangiceni Tubasido, Umabatu in a Tati Tombani, say Shora, Dicagio Mare, Sanjum de Ngarazu Ton and Shije, the Nelu Lonzilla Soba, Rangone Yoba Shishaja Shavior, Tavashavira. And it's Chiri Yobase. There's a Kanga Chirine, Yido, the Mel, Tata, Ni Pajo, and this so assembly Sha, and it's what they do in Yonse Shora, Chiri Yobasigua. Samson Basingate and Chiri Yomare, Milamdan Nation, me in a mille, Lion and La, Tundru in a Tundru, Ida in a Ida Coranzo, Nawaji or Tipa Shane, Diremado, Pinetsu Shai, the Homari Sigara. Pinetsu Shai in a Kangal Chibasha, or the Tisha Maris. You don't want this, Kashe, you don't want Kashe, you don't want Kashe, Trashagra, Kashel, Nugra, Kashel, Nugumare. You Chirine, you have your maris, Samsam Bennett and the Sigara. O Tia Kagio Chiri Yobashisha, Chiri, you to Yore, you have more Rangune, Yore, Rangachin, Yore, Titagasha Yore, Kagio Mare Sanjay, Aranzo Tunjuna Shisha. Diana, Aranzolia, Midagba, Tunga was on it. Nanzu Pusum Sovacilation, Shuksambo Chiriorde, Titawa de Mardas, Timidavares, Tichel do de Young Touch over das, Shedashan Jasia Yomares Arisongora. Tunga de Tunga Tundruga Hakura. Nanzu Devare said, Kangi Pada, Meva Chavata, Soso Samuel Shuksambu, Tunda Trusuna, oh, Taya was also some Swat Devanyangi Yaramado, Tongone. Ransambajare Mendoza Guara, Karas Netin Gursona, Tungere and Guara. They were there, Ranza de Mare, Tambudilla or Taya would have some summer. Sunny Dele do Nani de Chesar, Kokege, the one Medusa Tangi Hatene, Tinduko, Soa Soso, Sortan Chigi, the one de Remado, Mone, the Wayanet, Sora, the Tagaran, Degora, the Watambuchon, the Tagaran, the Degmarisera, Dur don't repose Dungan or Judora. O this one go a Shenja soon to it. Medaba the Dunga shared, Midi Dunga Yanchu et and Dal share your mother. Go I keep it to Shenja soon to Tana Tandalia, or Nejumone at the Tendesria, some Shenja soon Dora. Shenja soon to the train to the Dunga de Chundura. Dunga de Chundu et Tandalia, Medaba the Dunga said, Neju Hago et and the Tisungura. And the Dame said, Chidanchena. Thank you, I say on a share, to be dame of a Pumbule donation better, Sobo Pasha, Sem Pasha, Swa Pasha, Najing around you some rangetu was a rattle. My rangetu was say, rangetu was say it does. Tendeji Yomares on Guara. Tendeji Yomares. Zangmaying Dasiaro, Mizawe Dasiaro, Luni Mesare, and Kashe Da, Zangma, Kashe Da, Duja, Tambuki, and Mina, or Tende Yomares. Some the Rangia to which you are Pumbula, there's in Delni Tachi or Eser. Rangia to be said, Dame, but some detain you are. O Tila Shichen and Dodibana Chidamos to the Nitichore. Chiri, yes, Chutam the Rangachini, Rangune, yes, Chiru, yes, Chutam the Rangune, yes. Ina Medavare, you don't Medava, Yorgere. Rangia to be Zayagi Dayomar, Pumbulatan, the Turch and Del Megungang, Darangia to Vajiomar, to Daddy, Dodibana Chidamani or the Kalingora. Till a Tamani is a Chidin years, Shutam Jarangachini, true city to Daddy, Colotambul ten Yongora. What did you love?
So, during the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, the Buddha was giving a teaching that is actually based on accepted convention. For example, Buddha was basically giving teachings as if a sort of self exists, and the external phenomenal worlds exist, not like the way in which during the second turning the Buddha says that nothing exists from the size of the object, everything is mentally imputed. Here basically the Buddha is giving the first teachings and giving to an audience where there is a strong sense that the things exist objectively. So therefore, the Buddha gave as if things exist from their own side, exist objectively, and external things exist. And he gave teachings as if extra-mental phenomena or external things that outside the mind actually exist. Because the reason why I said this is because one of the Buddhist philosophical schools, a later school, a Mahayana school, what we call as the mind-only school or Chitta Matra school, would later argue that there is no extra-mental phenomena, nothing exists outside the mind. They say that there is no objective external reality. Everything is basically an expression of one's own mind, similar to a dream state. In the dream state, when you dream, we dream dualistically. We dream there is a mind, and that mind actually sees things like elephants and so forth. But really, it's just one mind that is dualistically structured in the dream state. There is no object and subject and real object. It's just one mind. Similarly, the mind-only school would later on, as the philosophy developed, argue that everything is just like that. Everything is one's own mental expression, and there is no objective reality, no external reality. Because if there is objective external reality, then if anyone looks at a particular object, that particular object should elicit some kind of same sort of reaction, whether it is pleasurable or unpleasant or neutral or whatever. That is not the case. The one and same object gives rise to different kind of reactions, pointing therefore, according to the mind-only school, that objective reality doesn't exist. So here, basically, the Buddha is giving teachings as if things exist independently, intrinsically, but what he was teaching is that these things are impermanent. These externally existing, these intrinsically existing things are nonetheless impermanent. Little easier to digest at this stage, because they are momentary, they are impermanent, and therefore they are in the nature of suffering. He's also talking about the nature of suffering, fundamentally because they are impermanent, which is a kind of a more deeper understanding of suffering. Because in this category of suffering, where suffering is suffering because of being impermanent, even our notion of general, conventional, accepted notion of happiness is in the nature of suffering. Because something gives us pleasure, but if you keep on doing that, it turns into suffering. Basically, points to the reality that there is no authentic, genuine source of happiness, because they are subject to change, momentary change. And the reason why these things are introduced here is not to, as I mentioned earlier, to induce further suffering, to make samsara worse, but rather to eliminate, to reduce our strong attachment. Because the less attached we are, the less disturbed we are, and the more stable our mind is going to be, the more kind of realistic joy we are going to enjoy. Oh yeah, and then here, at this level, the Buddha was also talking about selflessness. But selflessness here is not as subtle as the selflessness that the Buddha would teach during the second turning. Selflessness here simply means a substantially existing self, which basically means what they are teaching is there is a self, but there is no self that is distinct from the mind and body. But they still cling to a notion of self, but not to a substantial self. Substantial in the sense that it is not distinct. It is a notion. Substantial self would be a self that is not dependent on the mind and body, a distinct self. They are saying there is no self, but there is a self, which is dependent on the mind and body. This is a grosser understanding of selflessness. That during the second turning of the wheel, the Buddha is going to make it more subtle. So based on the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, 2 of the 4 Buddhist schools emerged. What we call as the Vipassika school of philosophy and the Sautrandika school of philosophy. Because these 2 schools maintain that things have objects of existence. Things exist from their own side. Not just because of a mental imputation. Things actually exist from their own side. Phenomena exist from their own side. And not only that, phenomena have external existence. They are extra mental phenomena in the sense that they are outside the mind. So that's why these 2 schools come from the first turning.
Kolo parba de teachele kolo niba sesiora o de shezengin dodera shirab di paru di chimbendo ngaje shirab ni bula soba bomda niti sero o tezule kolo parba sungora kolo parba sungsa di chago phungbe rele ya songbara o de anda de sungsa dele ane teba chimbe do set sora tanda kolo tangbo de tengmegin doskara teba memben dos ina tejin ba ke kelengi ora Semzambatan, Dodebatan, Chidama, Omaba, Tegba Chembudan, Tegba Member, Sama Kalingira, Colotambudi. The Colo Barba de Shirjingin dose. The Colotama delia, Dodi Condres, Colosum Yora. No, Dinane, Colo Barba, Tamaniti, Dodebatan, Chidama, Tozuke, Sanje Kayin, Bakalingi Mare. Sanje Ka de Colotambu de Sanje Kare. Sanje kala ngedwe ma to changdwe se yo ma ngedwe se na sanje sungba chama demba yin se sanje sungba de demba ma de se chi shaye me se sanje sungre tamje ngedwe sungba na shi ngebe to be kyabgre se do de ba de chita ma ko tangbu to zo tende se yo ra ta thekba sembu semzamba da uma ba de zo sanje kala ya changdwe yo re ngedwe yo re Sumba she kelang chonget in the yore, Sumba she kelang Mijigba, kelang Miguba in the yore Sigora. The Karesana, Sanje Chesund, Duje come down, Samba down, Wongbo down, Tesolete Chesungora, Kanga Kingiora. Oh, that call it Tishana, take can do, Tanda Shagum do something, and a Kapkablia or die or Sungshagiora. Time ever says the cockam ever. Chedal Lota Yanga Yungara. O this is the Tuje come the Sambata, lawyer rebel turn a coach on Shagara. Do the Kapkalia, when Nezuda, Tell man and call some tell him no nature the Siena, Kundu Chu Meduba, Pendo Manga, no Shanget and Sunguyomara, Dylan Dodo, Koran Sambanation, the Resungora. Says a Sanje Sola Tuje come the Sambewange, Kanga Kingi Yusa, or Deletitian and some. And the Tando than Edo Chiri Yungurese. King Arazo any Samlotanche, or dig on the Tembare, dig some taxation Arazo, Musum Gundavan Dugamendo, Ribe Novan Dugamendo, taxation, Sanje Sung Kelly, so what the Kelly, Mecho what the Combashan Shaven, Tujewang Sungusungarese, Tendesha would ace, Tandung it on Nishigara. Oh, this Chegova de Sanje Ranga Sungora. Kelon Dagam Kenam Gis. Kelon in Andra, Keba condition in Andras, Kelon member. Kelon Dawkina. 6 days session, near Shesha, but some of the ser nudus, ser smelta, can do it. Che, there are now looking here to get tar, toletar, can do it. 6 darsum shen, ser nugur was can just ogona. The Tinding of Chile, attended subsocial with us. Tinang, San Shesha Batelia. Musum Gindavan Duge, Riben Novan Duge, any Gawan Duge, Tende Samlutange, any Chebache, Social Loge, Namjuya Pen, any Lola Baba de Oin Kelly, Maba de Kelly Koguma Rese, Sanje Sumba Rese, Kusen to Chen Kemalin Sora. Kelon Dagam Kenam, the 6 session do, Legbertalang, Ayaka, Laur Chayes. Mebam, Shenji Keban Jumaja, oh, Sanje Sumden de Sachimber, Congressumba Kanga Dembares, Tendesi Maresora. O te Indico, Tijimba Tozuga Colotambo, Parba, Tamasumga Kelera, Umaba the Simba. Dodebada Chidama to the Tambo to the Kolo Tambo Mado, Parba, the Tamade, Sanje Song Mare Segre. Gumbo Ludu, that is Luine Shibi, is a chick on teacher Mado, Sanje Song Mare, Sanje Song Tandung, and doing immense. Soon but some of them by Yankudese. Oh, that take what Shambo to the Sanje Song and get on the Tandung Ichigures, Tisha Yara. What did you love me? Chidomado.
So now we go to the second turning. The second turning is referred to as the first turning on the Four Noble Truths. The second turning is turning on the teachings pertaining to the lack of intrinsic nature of all phenomena. Basically, the teachings on emptiness. And these are the teachings that we now refer to as the perfection of wisdom teachings, such as 1,000 stanzas, 20,000 stanzas, and so forth. The perfection of wisdom teachings that give teachings on the ultimate reality of emptiness. And it is said that the second turning, the first turning was given at Varanasi, modern day Varanasi. The second turning was given at a place called Rajgriha, Vulture's Peak, in modern day Bihar. So now something that we have to understand here is the second turning and the third turning. The third turning is basically as it is contained in this particular sutra called Samdhi Nimocana Sutra, the sutra unraveling the intent. That is the third turning. So according to the Vipashka school and the Sautrantika school, according to those who believe only in the first turning, that is the Four Noble Truths, these two turnings are not accepted as the actual teachings of the Buddha. They don't accept it. But according to, that is basically the Theravada tradition does not accept the second turning or the third turning, which is the subject matter of what we call as Mahayana teachings. Because it is something that is not common. It is not commonly taught to everyone. Was secretly taught, and so because it is not part of the common history, they don't accept these teachings. This is something that we have to keep in mind. But the Mahayana tradition accepts all the teachings: the first turning, the second turning, and the third turning. One thing. The second is the notion of what is a definitive teaching or literal teaching, and what is interpretable teaching, which is not definitive. According to the Vipashka, according to the Theravada tradition, according to the proponents of the Vipashka and Sautrantika school, if it is a teaching of the Buddha, it is a literal teaching. We have to accept the words. We have to accept as it is mentioned in the text. It is definitive teaching in the sense that, we cannot interpret it otherwise. It is not interpretable teaching. But according to the Mahayana tradition, the Buddha's teachings can be both interpretable and definitive teachings. And so therefore, we should not accept the teachings of the Buddha as he has taught. We have to really. The reason for that is according to the Mahayana tradition, the Buddha was a fully omniscient person. So therefore, he knows the mental disposition, the mental state, the mental capacity of the kind of disciples that he had. And so he would give a teaching that will suit the mental capacity and the mental level of of his specific audience. So therefore, sometimes he said there is self, because if for some students, if he said there is no self, it gives them like kind of wrong understanding of Buddhism. So there is no agencies, things like that. So therefore, according to the Mahayana tradition, because a fully omniscient person, fully compassionate person gave teachings according to the mental capacity, according to the mental aptitude of disciples, we should understand that therefore the teachings are contractual. And because they are contractual, we shouldn't take them as definitive teachings all the time. We should actually see what is the context, what is the purpose, and we have to test it with reason, to see if it accords with reason or is counteracts reason. And if it is not according to reason, then we should not accept it as literal, definitive teachings. And this is actually something that is also mentioned by the Buddha himself, when he said in very well-known, famous words, "O monks and scholars, just as the gold is tested by burning, rubbing, and cutting, just as a goldsmith actually, in order to see whether it is an actual gold or not, is tested by cutting, rubbing, or burning. Similarly, you should test my teachings, examine my teachings, and not accept because I said so." So therefore, this freedom to basically investigate the validity of the teachings, the truth of the teachings, is something that is sanctioned by the Buddha himself. Not just because he literally said it, but also because the context of the teaching basically tells us that we should be able to analyze, we should be able to investigate to see what kind of teachings make sense to us, and so therefore the most profound teaching is teaching that speaks to you. It is not because something is mine or whatever the teaching, but the most profound teaching is something that speaks to you. So therefore, we have the freedom to analyze, investigate, and see what aspects of the teachings definitely speaks to us.
Oh yeah,
No.
Oh, there's Shema Kolobarbada.
So the time is up, so we're going to further discuss more on the second turning and the third turning in next Sunday, which is the last Sunday we have.
May all beings have happiness. May they be free from suffering. May they find the joy that has never known suffering. May they be free from attachment and hatred. May all